We are ready. We are willing and we are able to get back into this matchup. Sorry, I was just unmuting myself on Discord. I forgot to do it before, so at least us could hear me. And now we are ready to jump into map number 2. If you did miss the first map, don't worry. It only lasted about 5 minutes. mousesports absolutely splattered Endpoint 16-1. You did read that right. You have heard that right. It was incredibly one-sided, Dust. And now I suppose we're just hoping that this map is at least somewhat close.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know that that'll be the case. Endpoint has actually only won 2 of their last 10 games on Mirage, and the last 5 times that they've played it, they haven't even been able to hit double digits when they got crushed. So they do not have the best track record on Mirage coming into this. mousesports, bit of a mixed bag on Mirage, to be honest, but their games have been a lot closer when they have lost, and they've gotten some solid wins against teams like Complexity and OG in recent memory. So I think that they are definitely well positioned, especially based on the momentum they had from the first map, to maybe make quick work of this series 2-0. But I'm hoping that I'm wrong. I'm hoping that Endpoint can turn the corner on Mirage, have a better result here today, or at least a better showing, keep it close, keep it competitive, because last map was all but competitive.
No doubt at all. Rops, one of the key players we're looking at, has got himself one, still perched up on the balcony as well, and gets a second. Quite surprising considering so many players just ran themselves straight into him. And now that mousesports have the player advantage, make that 2. It's looking untenable that Mighty Max can pull this off. 43 HP, flash up and over, goes for the peak, but BMAS from Catwalk shuts him down. mousesports back into winning ways.
Yeah, again, just want to highlight Rops' smart play there. I mean, when he gets the first kill, he's more than aware that someone else is likely going to push the B apartments and trade him out. But rather than panicking and maybe even swinging into B apartments, he decides just to hold his own and make sure he can get that second kill off before the inevitable happens where he gets swarmed by the B apartments player and gets, blindsided. And basically, that's just a calculation on Rops' part, knowing, hey, look, I'm probably going to die, but if I can take one more on my way out, then I keep the numbers in my team's advantage. And that's exactly what happened there. So really, again, well done by Rops on his decision-making and just good teamwork from mousesports on the retake all in all. Endpoint obviously going to look to buy up as much as they can with that bomb plant. Go ahead and get the Galil armor. Galils are very powerful now. They have been for quite some time, but you see mousesports with the aggression, and it's working out in their favor. They trade 2 for 1 on the underpass.
And interestingly, this is something that they didn't really do much of. Earlier today, they had that quad overtime game on Mirage, and they didn't go aggressive very often. They normally just played fairly default, passive, static kind of Counter-Strike. So it's cool to see them bust this out in the second round. And now Crucial and Robin, with Galils by their side and only a smoke between the two of them, have at least brought it back to a 2-on-3. Crucial with a solid flick in midair. Rops caught out napping, and the Estonian eviscerated. But Endpoint still have a huge task ahead of them, which is almost made easier, and indeed will be finished off by Robin. And now Crucial comes back in. This 2v5 is actually real. It's happened. Endpoint instantly nullify the aggression and get back into winning ways, and that's what we're looking for.
That was so tough for mousesports because their window player wasn't able to get away at jungle. He spotted the player boost into window. He tried to get away. He couldn't. And then Frozen was perfectly positioned for the flank through underpass, but then missed his opportunity. So those Galil kills from Crucial is basically what won them the round. I think that either that scout that was in jungle needed to be able to get away to buy more time for Frozen to get in position, or Frozen just has to capitalize on that flank, and he did neither of those. So what started out good for mousesports on the initial trade underpass withered away very quickly when kind of Frozen missed his chance on the window boost player. And now Endpoint looking to just lay into this A-bomb site with some type of set piece. We already have a CT burning alive here on the balcony, and here comes that push.
Ooh, that's rough. May finish him off with a grenade if he's not careful, though. Here it comes from Crucial. Touchdown, and now Endpoint with 3 kills back-to-back. Make that a 4th, make it the round-winning streak, surely. And this really depressing statistic, Dust, if they do convert this 1v5 as you expect them to, this already is more rounds than they picked up in the entirety of Train.
You know what else is an impressive statistic is that it's the first time in Vince's career that he's ever used the word touchdown in a broadcast.
Probably,
usually a big rebel against American-style football, but he's really come on his own here, and he's actually made the touchdown reference as a Brit, so well done.
We take them. We take them.
Yeah, it is your fault, by the way, that we call it soccer, so I also want you to take that one on the chin.
What, mine personally? Reasonable.
Well, not yours personally, but it is your nation's fault that we call it soccer. So I'm sick of all these Europeans always hating on Americans for calling football soccer, but it was a British term, and so you are to blame for that, sir.
I can neither confirm.
I can break down
nor
the
deny
history
these
of it if people
allegations.
want to go toe-to-toe with me as well, by the way. I'm down.
I believe you. I believe you.
Okay. Yeah.
That's not the hill I'm willing to die on. So,
that's a good idea.
so mousesports now 2-1 behind. The first time they've actually trailed in this entire best of 3. Such is the nature of the train performance. They do at least retain a Galil, but that's basically it. And they're not even going to bother buying anything behind that. Frozen drops his Deagle to Rops. They have 2 power plays, if you even want to call it that. But surely this is where Endpoint really start to show us what they're capable of. Beautiful shot from Flamesy. There you go. If you give him a chance, if you unleash Flamesy, he will absolutely punish you. So I really hope that this is going to be a much more competitive game.
Much like real Flames, Vince, if you unleash them, they will indeed punish you.
It's true. Yep.
That was really forced. I'm sorry. I just don't have much to share at this point. I mean, this is essentially a full eco from mousesports other than the Galil that was recycled from the previous round. And unless Frozen can make some type of play, which he does have head armor. So, I mean, if he makes a brilliant individual move, there is some hope. But with Rots being isolated in ladder room with just the Deagle and, again, good spacing here from Endpoint, they're not going to allow him to do much. Whoa, Flames, he stop. Why you got to do it to him like that? Why has he done that?
Just destroyed him, hasn't he? And I suppose if you're mousesports, you're at least like, okay, well, let him get these crazy frags out of his system while, you know, it's basically a Galil and a Deagle round.
Sure.
When we've got our own rifles, maybe then things will slow down somewhat.
Yeah. Kind of curious what mousesports want to do here. I mean, they've really been favoring this double op setup with Kerrigan and Chris J, and that's definitely something you can do on Mirage, though I don't know that the economy will be there right away for mousesports to go for that. So that's something to keep an eye on going forward, as they had a lot of success with that on Train multiple times today. It's an interesting dynamic too, Vince, because obviously when Voxic was on the team, he was a primary op, so Chris J was always secondary op. So this is kind of new space for Kerrigan. He's certainly been the secondary opper on previous teams he's called for, so it's not completely foreign to him. But yeah, it's kind of an interesting dynamic change because, you know, obviously a lot of roles have changed now with Voxic on, you know, Chris J taking up the primary opping. He was entry fragging before, which he took up from Frozen, who had been doing it prior to that. And then you have BMOS coming in as an inexperienced player trying to play a role he's more comfortable playing as a more active rifler alongside Kerrigan. The only thing that's really stayed the same is Rops, I feel like. Like, his role has never really pivoted too much.
You know, I was asked an interesting question before, and maybe depending on how quickly this round gets into play, we can come back to it. But someone asked earlier what I think Rops' ceiling is in terms of sort of HLTV rankings. Is he like a number 1, number 3 kind of player? But we can get back to that in a second, Dust. I'll pick your brains on that one, as we do have all hell breaking loose in middle. Chris J and Surreal trading frags. It's at the cost of Chris J's life, and he has been one of their better players today. That could sting mousesports already. Backs against the wall. Kerrigan caught napping with a grenade out. Gets punished by Crucial. And there aren't a great deal of grenades to play with behind this either. They have 4 in total, 2 of them HEs, and no kits either. So, I mean, this is looking grim again for mousesports.
Indeed it is, but Rops up to the task with the big double kill inside the connector. BMOS also found the 1v1, and so now it's going to be all on Surreal. In the blink of an eye, everything that you just talked about kind of crumbled like a big Jenga tower of some sort, but maybe Surreal can still try to pull this one through. He does have bomb possession. He's going through underpass to the B bomb site. Frozen's trying to worry about middle, so the B bomb site is actually open for a time, but Frozen, I'm sure at some point, will realize that that is a vulnerability, and he will probably come back and take a look at that window, and then it'll come down to this 1v1 battle that's about to break out.
I'm still somewhat mesmerized by Rops able to kill 2 and then land a dink on the 3rd player and connector. That was it. Now Surreal with the bomb, the timing. That was so awkward. And that could have been a win for Endpoint if he gets the upper hand. It's a 1v1 post plant, and the last player was miles away from it, so he could have even repositioned. That's so brutal.
Again, it's Rops, man. Just so good at just holding his ground on the CT side, no matter where he is on the map. That double kill inside connector was huge. Obviously, BMOS also was able to pitch in there for a frag right in the game, putting Surreal in a very tough 1v2 with low health. So great recovery there for mousesports. Make it 2-3 full buy for both teams still in play. Mid control again, kind of just default from Endpoint. Been really attacking it very quickly though, I will say. And Chris J's been able to step out for one.
Yeah, and they also noticed that Mighty Max just hopped into connector. The grenade doesn't finish him off, but that smoke shot will. Chris J blows out his kneecaps. Nothing remains of Mighty Max and Flamesy. Casualties of war. Some extra damage inflicted now to Surreal. And a no-scope from Chris J. Putting the nails in the coffin for round 6. Robin can do very little, but just hope that he can maybe get some kills out of this and put this fairly weakened and vulnerable economy, if we're being honest, from mousesports to the test. Yeah. If we can get a 2 or 3 kills from this, honestly, that might be good enough from Robin's perspective.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, that's really all that you can hope for. Indeed, forcing some rebuys out of mousesports would certainly be very costly for them. And Robin has spotted one inside the site, fades back, Chris J steps over, and now he's basically boned. Like, I don't know how he gets an angle on the side again, but okay, that's a great headshot on the Chris J, who had the op trained on that position. You favor Chris J in that duel, but he does take the L. Luckily, BMOS stops that from getting any worse. So only 1 rebuy, not that big of a deal. They weren't able to collect the second op, though, so they will be just running the solo op setup this round. They don't have the economy to keep that rolling. So, yeah, their economy is still vulnerable, but Endpoint's also drained on cash. I mean, this is basically their last shot at a buy for a bit, so they need to make this one work. Otherwise, mousesports could really get on a roll and really start building that lead up.
mousesports constricting the economy somewhat, but it's not as if theirs is in great shape either. BMAS down to $50. Rest of the team can buy again, so that's less of an issue. Whereas Endpoint are eyeing up an eco/half buy. Maybe even get a plant in, things could get quite interesting. Round loss bonus is starting to build on their perspective. Drops in the meanwhile, looking at connector. Has seen a lot of action, especially from his hands. He's done an excellent job for the most part. Endpoint just clumped together here, Dust. Like, they're very one-dimensional in this mid-take.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because mid-control is obviously the default of Mirage. But usually it's some type of 1-3-1. Or maybe even like 1 underpass, 1 B apartments, 2 top, middle, 1 outside A. You know, some type of configuration like that. But this is just way more, you know, balled up as 5. Let's just push together. And indeed, they do make huge progress up catwalk into B. Great entry there from Mighty Max as well onto Chris J. B-bomb's like completely torn apart. And there's really not much of a foothold for mousesports to retake from. And honestly, they probably shouldn't even try. Their economy is so very low that they basically just need to save these 3 guns to have a buy into the next round. So that's a big win from Endpoint. Again, they have consistently been good at getting control of middle. It's just there's been a couple of times where they've been halted in their tracks when they try to make progress onto a site. When Rops cut them off at connector, for example, or Chris J with the op at middle. They just haven't necessarily always been able to make that next step on the flowchart you need to accomplish to actually get the round under your belt. But this round they did. They just stayed as 5. They made sure that their spacing was good, that they had a cluster of players to trade frag with, and they just kind of bulldozed into that B site. So good, aggressive, and decisive play from Endpoint gets them a 4th round. And now mousesports, again, they have to just kind of chill, try to recover their economy a bit, and Endpoint are keeping themselves the front runners.
Well, they most certainly are doing just that. mousesports back into a full-on purchase because of their saved guns. They at least have the sanctuary of that to fall back on. But as you said, Endpoint not messing about. After that first map, you'd have been, I'd say, excused for not really believing in Endpoint bringing this back into a 1-1, but they've started well here on Mirage on their T side. And again, mid-control, the order of play. Molotov tossed down, and even staying in the flames. Flamesy will live up to that name. He comes straight out with the smoke bang shot into Carrigan and lives to tell the tale.
You know, it's interesting we talk about how Endpoint's been, you know, going for this really rapid mid-control, which, again, isn't necessarily super far from standard, but it certainly is at a faster pace than maybe, like, a more default team would play the map. But mousesports is elected more often than not to challenge it. And they had some success early on in the half by, you know, pushing underpass and facing off Cat, and Rops doing a good job just facing connector and lining up some crossfires with BMOS. But now, all of a sudden, Endpoint are winning those initial duels. And so not only are they getting mid-control, they're also getting man advantages on their way. And now they've just gotten another huge kill into the B site.
Leaving it to Frozen. Last man standing, but that Bastion has fallen. And with his life, the bomb site will follow alongside a 5th round, and the rest of the troops of mousesports, Rops, and BMAS want to save. So we can get back to that question I was going to pose to you a few rounds ago, but obviously we've had consistent buys, so we wanted to make sure we didn't miss any of the action. Rops, where do you realistically see his ceiling in terms of HLTV rankings, and where do you personally think he is right about now?
Ooh, I mean, I think if you're talking about, you know, the year of 2020, so to speak, I think that with us being in like this weird online era of Counter-Strike where things are a lot more up in the air, I guess, as far as like how we feel about certain players and teams and where they sit. But if it were up to me, I think you could easily make the argument that in this online era, Rops is probably like at worst a top 10 player in the world and very likely in the top 5. I think he's really, despite mousesports' struggles as a team, he has always stood out individually throughout this year. Like, he's been the one beacon of hope, I feel like, with all of mousesports' woes. So I think that he even should get more credit than some of the other players out there just because of what his supporting cast has kind of been able to accomplish around him. So I think that he's really tried to carry this team almost in many ways. So I think he deserves a lot of credit.
Well, he is one of the players with an AK and a scout alongside him on Chris J. See if that supporting cast can do something special here, or if it's going to have to all be Rops. BMAS and Carrigan neutralized without really much of a fight. And it is down to that man Rops who pressed up aggressively. Also drops down the AK, so maybe that's for Frozen, who is now making moves through middle. And if they can save those 2 AKs, that would be a decent takeout of this round. They'll be happy enough to save that. It's more the overall score that will be a bit of an issue. And just, you know, reverberating around the back of their mind. But Endpoint, I've got to give them credit, Dust. I really do. Yeah. This has been a great Mirage.
It really has been. Again, coming into this game, they had only won 2 of their last 10 Mirage matches, and like the last 4 or so, they were getting blown out, you know, only getting like 4 to 8 rounds, you know, per game. So, yeah, I mean, this is definitely a big turnaround for Endpoint as far as the level of play they're showing on this particular map. And, I mean, we also have to point out that mousesports' results have been a mixed bag overall, really for the year, but certainly Mirage is another map that they've had some good wins on, but also have had quite a few losses. Now, their games have typically been closer than Endpoint's games have been. But yeah, I mean, Endpoint definitely showing us much better Counter-Strike than Train, which I'm happy about, because I honestly thought that this series could be over with in the blink of an eye, and we wouldn't have done a whole lot of casting together, Vince. But seems like Endpoint are up to the task so far here on Mirage and making this game quite a heated contest, as the score is quite close, and it seems like they have the slight edge on how they're, you know, picking apart mid-control and laying into these sites very aggressively, and their trading efficiency is very high.
Not the first time I've seen Chris J using the MP7. It's interesting. I feel like it's a gun that goes under the radar quite a lot with a lot of players. And Carrigan, who was looking like he was aiming at the legs, just flicks up in time and outright takes out Flamesy. It's a huge pick.
Wow.
One that mousesports were desperate to attain, considering how poorly these last 3 or 4 rounds have gone for them now.
Changed Endpoint's whole plan. Like, they were really leaning on the hope that Crucial would find an opening op pick and they just spill out into B, as they've done a couple of times this game. But now they have to think of a different route. They will smoke off mid window. They will get some mid control. They could even get into connector. They have a smoke on stair side. They're making progress of catwalk, which is not really being contested by mousesports. They're just relying on Carrigan, who's kind of solo holding both angles. He's having to kind of time which one to peek, and depending on which one he chooses, it could be trouble. And indeed, he swings out towards Cat. Too many targets in front of him. Crucial will get the pick. That's an open B bomb site. And will mousesports even think of retaking here? With that kill, probably not. Again, their economy is so low. I think they just have to sit back.
And mousesports are getting schooled. They get the first kill from Carrigan in B-Apps, and as you say, you do see that knee-jerk reaction from Endpoint, like, oh crap, we actually have to change things up, and they still get it done. And another thing I'd like to raise as well, Dust, I don't know if you saw their quadruple overtime earlier today. They only picked up 3 rounds in regulation on their CT side. It was their T side that was phenomenal. Their CT side had a lot of vulnerabilities, and I can't help but feel a bit of deja vu watching them again here.
Yeah, I mean, again, Mirage is one of those maps that I feel could go either way on the side. It kind of depends on the team and the matchup. So as long as mousesports can put up a respectable number here on their CT side, I would still think the 2-0 is possible. I think really the biggest issue for mousesports this half is just their economy situation. I mean, when you're on a CT team and you don't really have spending power and you're constantly having to save in these, you know, retake situations where you have like 3 or 4 players alive. And so ideally you go for the retake and try to get the win, but you just feel too out of position and your money is just too low. You really get caught in this trap of, you know, being forced to play timid almost. And I think that that's always really hard to recover from defensively, no matter what the map is. And so that could be really the trouble. But look at this, Rops trying to do some fancy stuff out in middle. Unfortunately, he's been caught.
Maybe just getting a bit desperate, trying to change things up. It hasn't been working standard. It hasn't been working default. They've been playing aggressively a few rounds. And by and large, they've got slapped back. Yeah. You can understand going aggressively and trying different things, but you have to make it work, Dust, because you're at that stage right now where I completely agree with you. I think Mirage, maybe the stats don't paint the full picture in terms of it being considered a little bit more CT. I don't think that necessarily is a fair indication overall. It's very even in my eyes. But even then, you've got to put some rounds on the board, right? Like if you come through with 3, sure, you've done it once today, but Endpoint, they're not contact. They have different areas up their sleeve, and Chris J at least does bring it back to a 4-on-4, but it looks like we're about to see a B hit.
Yeah, but the problem is there's really only one person to contest it. Chris J is deep into ladder, so it's all going to come down to Frozen. Chris J will get here, but just as a smoke blooms in his face, and Frozen's already dead. So again, mousesports will be faced with a tough decision on, do we go for this retake or not? We've had to save on like 2 or 3 other scenarios when we've been in this spot, and they're going to have to do it again. This is, again, like the 3rd or maybe even 4th time that Endpoint have just collapsed on the B site. They take it clean, and mousesports are just in no position to go for the retake, despite having decent numbers to do so. Again, the issue just is their economy, which you've already kind of beat that dead horse, I feel like, discussion-wise. And I think the other big thing is that B-bomb site on Mirage is one of the hardest retakes in the game. It's up there with like B-bomb site Dust too. So it really is just a tough spot mousesports have been put in. And you know, I'll say this, I feel like they've tried the aggression at middle multiple times, and honestly, they've had limited success. I think that their better bet at this point would be to maybe pressure the extremities, you know, maybe pressure A ramp or pressure Palace. I mean, they've had success getting opening picks with an op facing B apartments with Kerrigan. You know, it's just they haven't capitalized on their early man advantage. So I think that if they just keep the pressure on the extremities, get that opening pick, but then just tidy up how you position yourselves once you have the 5-on-4 or the 4-on-3. You know, I just think that them facing middle has not really worked out. Now they have double op again. This will give them a chance to give Endpoint a different look. So maybe that'll help mousesports out.
I'll certainly be hoping so. Be curious to see if they go aggressive again. They do. Rops is making moves up middle. He's stuck in the smoke, but may try and push behind that. Mighty Max just above him. He heard the couple of AK shots rattling out from middle. But Rops can stay in this position for a little while longer. Now the smoke is clearing, and so will Rops' position. He gets culled instantly. At least, though, for mousesports, one of those 2 aforementioned AWPs has came into play, but the other one has been neutralized. And now Robin finding the entry on B site. And Endpoint may very well want to build off the back of that. This time, though, Chris J will not give up the site for free. He goes back in again. He wants to gain what was once theirs. Unfortunate not to get the outright frag. Tags Robin, but it's partially through the bench. So Robin stands tall and delivers onto B-Mass. And now that Chris J's position is known, the 2 of them can start to rotate back to A. But Chris J has called this. He knows this is a possibility. He knows they're probably going to push back to A. So he's making a move towards the jungle side. But the Molotov singes his feet. Surreal would have heard that. He's laid in wait. The barrel of the gun betrays Chris J, and Endpoint get another one. 9-3 lead.
Yeah, that is really well played by Endpoint there. Just good decision making through and through. Once they get that opening pick on Kerrigan on the B site, they know that it's vulnerable. They know that Chris J is still in window, so they get Robin deep into B site territory to kind of fend off Chris J for as long as he can to buy them time, and then they have that access of underpass to make that snap decision to rotate out. Chris J, again, I thought he played that pretty well. He traded off of Rops in middle. He was making the right, you know, decisions positionally, but just in the end, Endpoint outplayed him. But this round, he's been able to get down low here. He finds an opening pick out in middle. He's got the scope for cover to escape as well. But mousesports have had plenty of these 5-on-4s, Vince, and they haven't always capitalized on it. I hope that this will be different.
No, absolutely. You're dead on the money. They've had plenty of opportunities. It's not like they've been completely shut out and have never got the opening picks and have never out-rotated or maneuvered Endpoint. It's just Endpoint, when it comes to their one-on-one duels, seemingly like they just don't miss right now. And for as good as Rops is and as much as we've been building up him and Chris J, the two of them have been a bit flat in this game. So let's see if Chris J can have a big impact. There's his second of the round. And with him joined alongside Frozen on the B site, that will make them feel a little bit more confident and comfortable. They will not lose it again, which has been a big weakness. It seems like A will be the site of choice, and although BMAS has moved up into the ramp and they have Carrigan perched at the back of the CT boxes, the fact that they have now lost Chris J is big, but Rops able to get one back. Carrigan fires in the AWP, and suddenly it all falls to the IGL of Endpoint. Mighty Max will need to flex those muscles if he's going to pull this one off, and instead, he gets battered. Endpoint do concede, but it's only mousesports' 4th round.
Yeah, I want to point out that besides Chris J's, really good opting in that round, the other big part was the fact that they were able to take ARAM control. So again, when you can get information on the extremities, it gives you not only a chance to have another retake point very early if the site is taken, but it allows freedom for your other players to maneuver around. So that was a great in combination. Triple op setup on CT Mirage here for mousesports, not something you see a whole hell of a lot. I am almost somewhat concerned about this, considering how often they've been put in retake B situations. Having triple op would make that even tougher. So we'll see how it plays out.
Especially if they get rushed on A. This is going to put even more pressure on their Carrigan, dancing back and forward on the triple box, and BMAS up close with the AK, spraying in for 2, alleviating the pressure and potential retake. That's one way of making the triple ops work, I suppose. And Mighty Max, again, in another 1 versus 4. Out of position, can maybe do a little bit of damage on his way out, but he's now given his spot away. And he's still worried in case someone on B peeks him from Catwalk, but it's Chris J he has to be wary of. Now, we saw a triple op set up on Train, but Mirage is a whole different ballgame.
Oh yeah, definitely a whole different meta on how it's played, so definitely much more risky. But again, I want to turn your attention to that's the second time in a row that BMAS has taken deep control of A ramp, and that's really been the thorn in Endpoint's side these last couple of rounds. Maybe BMAS is not getting all the kills, but he's holding very valuable territories, denying Endpoint that space they need to roll out their execute, and giving, again, more freedom to his offers to maneuver around the map with a little bit better intel to work with. So I just want to highlight that, because that's the adjustment that I feel mousesports has made on their defense, which has really been kind of the, I don't know how you would say it, but kind of the silent thing in the background, but still having a lot of impact.
Yeah, I hear you for sure. That power that's going on, undetected perhaps, but now Rops. Good grenade in, and Chris J's put one of those 3 ops to use again. Having a lot of impact, surreal. That's a beautiful headshot. But it's at the cost of his health, and they still find themselves a player behind, so maybe mousesports can muster up the strength for a 6th round, which was not looking likely just a few moments ago.
They could get window room, though, is the big thing. Chris J has it covered through the murder hole, but it's still territory that could be taken, as well as connector. You can see that BMAS and Kerrigan are playing very passive. The BMAS is hiding firebox, which I don't think has been used at this half, if I'm not mistaken. So when it's final round and you have never encountered that problem, it could be something that Endpoint overlooks. So we'll have to see if that is indeed going to be factored into this result.
Especially judging their path towards CT boxes. Carrigan gets one, but now you do not expect BMAS to be in firebox. You can see he's going straight for the plant, throwing the Molotov into ramp. He's a dead man. He just doesn't know it yet. Now the bullet passes between his eyes, and BMAS flicks up for the second. The youngster comes alive, as do mousesports. They still trail by 3 dust, but considering that we thought this could be a horror show of a half, it's a decent enough comeback.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, what, at one point, it was like 6-3 in favor of Endpoint, and then it winds up kind of going even from that point forward, so mousesports kind of closed the gap a little bit there. I think it was even 9-3, what mousesports won the last 3 rounds in a row, if I'm not mistaken. So,
yep, that's right.
Unfortunately, we can't pull up the timeline, but I believe my memory serves me right, and you're backing me up, so we're either both wrong or we're both incredibly awesome human beings, which I would take the latter 100% of the time. It's not narcissism if you include someone else.
Okay. If that's what makes you happy, Dust, go for it. Yeah.
I mean, you can't be accused of tooting your own horn if you bring someone else along for the ride.
I'm not sure about that one, Chief.
Listen, I'll take what victories I can get. Even if they're self-claimed ones.
As honestly, to kind of bring it back to the game itself, as would have Endpoint, if you told them on train, you know, at 16-1 down, you're going to lead the first half 9-6, they would have ripped your hands off. I have no doubt about that at all. And here we are. We're in that position.
That seems really unreasonable. They would rip my hands off?
It's like you're saying in England that, you know, they... never mind. They would be eager to accept it. Shall we say that instead? Is that more reasonable?
Oh, I get it now. Because you're holding something that they want.
Right,
so they
right.
rip your hand. Like a dog like biting you by accident because you have a treat in your hand.
Sure.
Because they're so yeah, okay, got it. We were able to cross the bridge. We were able to translate to each other. So I'm glad we got there in the end. It was labored, but it happened. As we are indeed starting off the second half now. A big round for mousesports, you would imagine, to try to quickly close the gap here and keep that 2-0 dream alive. I'm sure they would rather play less Counter-Strike to get their DreamHack Fall spot, if possible.
Well, you have to feel a lot hinges on this pistol. Mouse were to take it. Endpoint are in a bit of an awkward position. Surreal, great headshot. Pretty pixel perfect, honestly, on that approach. And now mousesports changed their decision-making. Or perhaps it was always going to be this side all along. The only player on this side of the map is Mighty Max, and that's an important frag. That allows him to keep a bit of presence up in the B apps. It forces at least one player to look up there while the rest of his team start to rip through the marketplace. And they will start to make a move in. Surreal, the first player to land a kill, is now circling round the side of Catwalk and sends Chris J reeling. BMAS 1v5 back to the wall, and he gets punctured. Surreal with a 3K, Endpoint with the second pistol.
Yeah, big round to win from Endpoint. Keep mousesports off their heels, at least for now. Though with that bomb plant, mousesports have options to buy early. We have seen the popularity of the Galil armor buy in situations like this, but there's also the more conservative approach of just maybe upgraded pistols and looking for a really strong full buy in the next round. And it seems like mousesports have elected to go the more passive route, I guess you could say, which is really no harm in that. They're confident in their gun rounds. Getting to them as quickly as possible is certainly ideal. They do get Chris J a scout, though, and listen, man, Chris J is one of the best scouters in the world, in my opinion. Dude is an absolute unit with the scout. Unfortunately, he has been blown to bits and only has 36 HP to work with, but still some hope that maybe he gets the scout going.
Yeah, fully agreed. I was bigging him up and hyping him up earlier on with the scout, and well, we saw what he could do on train. That 3 or 4K where he had the quick shot on the A site was majestic, honestly. So understandably, he holds on to it, even though he's weakened. Some may drop that across to Carrigan, who is the primary AWPer for this team, interestingly enough. They really share the two, and that's why. That's why you keep Chris J on the scout, flicking into the head of Robin. Now, the gun's in an awkward position. They'd have to go up the tenuous path of Connector with their backs exposed to Catwalk. They may not be able to get their hands on the weapon just yet, but now Carrigan goes in, picks it up, and he has the Kevlar. But he's been smashed straight away from Crucial. Chris J still laid in wait. Another headshot for the Dutchman. Puts his team in a position where they could feasibly pull this one off, but neither of them have Kevlar. So they may do better to just hold on to their deagles, but they decide against it. They're expecting Endpoint to play aggressively. A flash comes out from middle, so they know at least one of these two players is still in mid. That's a beautiful Molotov that forces Frozen out into the open. And with his death, the bomb will follow. This is asking a lot from the Estonian, but Rops has been in such fine form, you would not put this against him. However, headshot delivered, 15 HP remains, 22 seconds on the clock, and he's waiting to see if Mighty Max pushes in. He wants to fight this on his terms, but the problem is the time may not allow that to happen, and Mighty Max doesn't miss. It's a close one, but mousesports concede again.
That's really costly, though, for a round where they just had a couple of deagles and a scout. Like, mousesports is probably pretty happy about that. I think that they figured they'd win once they had the 2-on-2 and they had bomb possession towards jungle side. They knew that both CTs were coming from Catwalk. That's a situation that you think you should win in the 2v2. Like you said, though, a brilliant Molotov kind of threw a wrench in things, but they got a lot of rebuying out of Endpoint. And look at it, though. They had to rebuy 3 FAMAS, Vince. I mean, Endpoint are in a very vulnerable state right now where their huge lead could slip away very rapidly if mousesports can capitalize on this round coming up. They would probably put the score at 11-8 before Endpoint could buy again. So there is definitely now a window that has been cracked open for Mouse Sports. Whether or not they can slither in is a different story altogether. But that was a pretty impressive, mostly eco round, if we're honest. I mean, that was not a lot of investment, and they got a lot of results from it. So this is definitely a good time to kind of take a chill pill and think things through, which we did have a pause here. I'm not sure if this is a tactical from Endpoint or some type of technical, but yeah, that was a close call if you're Endpoint.
Oh, for sure. And I completely echo everything that you said. It puts them in a really awkward position. They're looking over their shoulder now because the taxman is coming to collect. If they do not concede, if they do not convert this round, I should say, and they were to concede, they're screwed. Their money goes down to very, very low amounts, and Mouse Sports will be breathing down their necks and could easily convert this into a comeback. So they'll realize that. I feel like this is a technical now. It's gone on too long to be a tactical or even 2 tactical pauses, so hopefully everything is okay. And momentarily, there we go, has been called back into action, so we'll find out what happens next.
Yep.
But there is a question here, Dust. Carrigan is the primary AWPer right now for Mouse Sports. What do you think about that? Because you do have a player in Chris J that is very good with that gun additionally.
Yeah, I don't get it. If that's really the case. Not really understandable to me. Seems like it should be an easy decision once Vox is out the door to go ahead and just give it back to Chris J, who's proven time and time again to be capable in the role. But to each their own.
No AWPs will be called into action this round. Regardless, it's just AKs. Carrigan straight down the heart of middle. And Rops ripping it out of Flame Z. With his death, the A site will follow additionally, and the 2 CTs that are stuck in Connector have a really tough task ahead of them. Wherever they move, they know they're likely going to go down, and those smokes now are clearing. Look at this long flank from Rops. Instead of pushing into Connector and trying to puncture that and constrict it with the rest of his teammates, he's going all the way around the back. He is mixing up the angles and making sure he's not playing this one greedy. He's making sure they win the round. This flank may never see the light of day. The CTs may die before it, and this goes back to a point that you raised, Dust. He's not a greedy player. He's not a selfish player. He's not a flashy player. But he's an efficient player. He makes sure you win rounds rather than posting up the huge triple or quadruple spray downs.
I think he's one of the best peripheral players in the world, if not the best. Just because not only can he do like the more just, holding position, getting information, playing patient, playing for more of the mid to late round clutch moments. He has good decision making through and through every stage of the round. He knows when he needs to actually peek and do something aggressive out of Palace or A ramp. He's been a very good outside A player on default for Mouse Sports for quite some time. He picks his battles well. In that round, he picked a great battle to get the second kill of the round, and then just took CT spawn control and just held it. Just constantly, letting Mouse Sports know that, hey, you don't have to worry about this. Keep your focus elsewhere. I got this taken care of. And I think that he just brings immense value to this Mouse Sports team, especially where we're at now, where Mouse Sports have had their struggles, and he's been, again, that constant rock you could kind of rely on. And in this anti-eco, he's just chilling out in Palace. He's already killed one. He spotted the other. Being very patient with the trigger. Gonna find the second kill as well. Again, even in low health, when someone might panic, he didn't even necessarily take the shots right away. He kind of just waited for his moment, his window where he knew that he'd had the best aim, and he took the shot despite his health. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I'm a Rops fanboy in many ways, but I just like good Counter-Strike, and when I see it, I call it, and that's what Rops does time and time again.
I feel like his play style definitely echoes his personality as well. He's a very humble, down-to-earth kind of chill guy. I think that shows with his gameplay. He never seems like he panics. And I could never imagine him panicking in person, actually, now that I think about it. But Mouse Sports, they haven't panicked in this round. As you said, Rops did well in Palace, and they've converted that into a bomb plant and likely an 8th round. Endpoint will want to save these 2. They did force spy, keep that in mind. So 2 Deagles and 2 Kevlars with the flashbang. Not able to get their hands on any weapons. And Mouse Sports would do well not to charge this down. They don't need to. Their economy also isn't fully solidified just yet. It's getting there, but if they were to lose 2 or 3 guns, that could definitely put a wrench in the works, especially if they gave across an AK to the CT. So just play it smart, play it safe, and convert this round, which is looking like exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, to be honest with you, Endpoint's economy is still not that great. I kind of called it would be 11-8 if Mouse Sports could capitalize on Endpoint's low economy, and that has come through as they will now jump up. But there's still no money there for Endpoint. It's actually worse than I imagined. It's actually going to be likely a 9th round out of Mouse Sports for Endpoint. Can have something to say about it, really. So all of a sudden, this game is back up in the air. I mean, I think that, when Endpoint had that 9-3 lead, they were feeling pretty great about things, but now all of a sudden it's a close contest again, and who knows where this is headed at this point. It seems like mousesports starting to get some momentum under them. They're starting to get in their comfort zones. Rops is teeing off. He's having a great game, and so is Chris J with the op. He's had a couple of big plays already. Even BMOS has, had his moments. So this is looking pretty great for mousesports right now, but they might run into a stack here on the B-bomb side. So this might be more interesting than I anticipated.
Yeah, you see that there's a cluster of CTs. They do have Chris J that's the expendable player, but it's more the bomb carrier next to him that's making me a little bit concerned for this round. BMAS with the first. Out comes Chris J. They're doing a good job of cleaning up the CTs, though. The janitorial duties in effect. And with Frozen's kill, it puts it down to Surreal. It's not a bad effort for Endpoint. They basically had very little in this round, just 2 Deagles and Kevlar, and they take down 2 players, so it's not too shabby, but because it's the MAC-10, they can draw that across, get an AK, and now they can upgrade to an AWP if they want it. So mousesports are in a great position, and Endpoint, I mean, firepower is no problem, but it's a lack of kits and nades that's more of a concern for me.
Yeah, no opping presence either, which I'm sure Crucial would love to have. Again, that's one of the impact players for Endpoint, and the op is his, go-to weapon. So to not have it in a key moment of the game is certainly tough, but, I mean, he's certainly capable of using a rifle, so there's still, is some chance there for him to have impact. So we are seeing mass aggression from Endpoint. They've already pushed 2 players up underpass. They know that the B side of the map is completely empty. If they can rotate fast enough, they could really punish this. The issue is, will they be able to do it quick enough? I mean, mousesports are already pinching on the site and have an entry.
Complete lack of mid control. Maybe as a result of the lack of AWP. Maybe we're seeing that in motion. Flamesy does get 2 kills, though. Pushed at the back of the CT boxes, and he's going in for more. There's a slight gap in that smoke, and now Mighty Max could maybe make the most of it. It's a round that was looking great when Rops picked up the first frag, but now things are getting in a bit disarray. Post plant comes in. Surreal fast flank. There's one. And a second, and that should be the round to follow. The only thing that mousesports have going for them is that Rops will get the drop. He will get the element of surprise, but there are so many smokes in his eyes, he can't feasibly do this. Surely not. He's so close to getting that right spray in control, but instead, it's going to be the full defusal, more than likely through the smoke, and there it is. It comes to fruition. Unfortunate for Rops, unfortunate for mousesports, but a beautiful hole from Flamesy.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people would question why is Flamesy, overextending and going for the 3rd kill, but that's actually one of those moments where it was actually probably the right call because it just kind of further allows Surreal, who's on that long con flank through a ramp, to be able to get more into position and get more comfortable to be able to make his own advancement. So definitely really big play from Flamesy to, get those 2 kills on the balcony straight away from Ticket and give Surreal that time to exercise, that underpass push into a real impactful flank. And now Endpoint are right back onto winning ways in a very important round, but hold the phone because mousesports have found huge entries very early on here. Luckily, Robin's able to fight back a bit, but they still are on the back foot.
Yeah, hold that phone. It was just a ringtone at the other end. There's nothing.
Wow.
Endpoint. Oh, they've been hung up on. I'm going to stop these phone puns. They're trash. Either way, mousesports have got a 10th, and Endpoint, well, they're wrecked. Their economy is destroyed.
I've never seen a bigger roller coaster ride than that one. I mean, Endpoint with such a great underpass push into an A ramp flank for a victory in a moment where their economy was very vulnerable and they had to really win to make sure mousesports couldn't tie up the game. And then, you ride that high only to just get absolutely pummeled in the next round, and you're right back where you started with just a, in the bin economy. Mousesports on your heels again. You can feel them breathing on you at this point. Never want to feel that. I don't know where I'm going with that, honestly. I'm going to go ahead and let that one go before it gets too weird.
he's
I know that you're trying to do more of a PG stream these days, Vince, and, I'm going to respect that wish, and I'm going to, hold off on taking that thought further.
Well, thank you, Chief. And plus, I always feel like the imagination is far worse than anything that can be said or shown, right? You just leave it lingering there and people can connect the dots.
And I can't get in trouble. So it's really a win-win.
It's a win-win, yeah, absolutely. He's 500 IQ there. Endpoint do have a scout, but Mighty Max dips down to the scout itself without any armor. This is kind of rough. And Flamesy goes down to ramp and just gets smashed straight away from Carrigan. So it's looking like this is mousesports' best opportunity to bring us back to all even. I wonder what's going on for Endpoint right now, because they must be pushing the panic button. Surreal comes out with a P250. Could there be some kills forthcoming? Keeping Frozen busy. And Surreal can trade up to an AK. Doesn't have Kevlar to supply it, but you get them one taps downrange. This is a potential banana peel for mousesports, who are looking to dance their way into an 11th round. Surreal now moving up slowly through connector. Did he just catch the tip of B-Mass's head over the boxes? I think he did. I'm pretty sure he saw that. The call will come through. Now spraying up through there. B-Mass gets tagged down, but he's already pounced onto Mighty Max. That puts an end to this round, and the grenades will leave a mark. 2/3 of his health disintegrate in a second. An upshot, pardon me. Narrowly missing out, but he's being flanked. Rops is coming for you. Surreal headshot. Never stood a chance.
Am I allowed to call out your chat on something or no?
Go on, go for it. Do it.
I'm not going to say their name, but I've seen a few people saying that Rops is a baiter. And let me just go ahead and say that if you sat down and you thought, man, Rops is really a baiter, has no impact on this team. Let me just go ahead and tell you, if you truly believe that Rops has probably forgotten more about Counter-Strike today than you'll ever know in your life. End scene.
Agreed. Endpoint. Hoping to forget that train performance and focus on the Mirage. If they can convert from here, we'd move to a third map, which we'll see Dust 2, and Crucial puts them one step forward. Gives them a good chance. However, they have a lack of B presence, and that is a bit of a concern because now mousesports are starting to inflict their will upon Endpoint. They're not fully committing behind this, though. They're trying to draw out some rotations, and they have been successful in that endeavor, Dust. They've drawn out a couple players, one of which is now decided against it. Crucial heads back to A.
Yeah, I mean, Endpoint have a lot here with having that territory inside Palace. I mean, this gives them more information. It gives more flexibility for Surreal to rotate and reinforce B if the pressure starts coming that direction. It's all going to come down with that mousesports can find clean entries. And, ooh, doesn't get much cleaner than that. B-Moss is a one-tap and Robin at the bench. Luckily, Mighty Max still stands, but only good for one. B-Moss is putting on a clinic right now, but the response from Endpoint has been in kind as Surreal doubles up and leaves Frozen all alone. This has been such a chaotic round, but it seems like Endpoint are going to come out on top. But Frozen does still have some hope in this 1v2.
Still alive. 10 bullets left in the magazine from Surreal on 48 HP, trying to play the off angle. Frozen may not check this. 30 seconds. He's not exactly trying to play this one stealthily. Oh no, Surreal's missed his chance. Frozen, 37 HP, 8 bullets left, and he knows where Crucial is. He has time. He doesn't have to force the plant just yet. Crucial ebbing his way round the side of the wall, and now Frozen's not sure as to exactly where the Dutchman is. Peeks out, 8 seconds. He's gonna have to get a move on. Crucial, his back turn. Frozen gets no scope from Crucial. And now Endpoint are in winning ways once more, and only 3 away from wrapping up this map.
Oh, Vince, if only you could see my facial expression, the fact that I'm standing right now. I cannot believe that the round played out the way that it did. First of all, I can't believe Frozen got it that close. I mean, the guy at Van missed the sitter that gave Frozen an opportunity to even get out into the site. And then once he does, again, he had Crucial dead to rights because Crucial didn't know where Frozen was. So Frozen knew exactly where Crucial was positioned. And I honestly thought that Frozen was playing that incredibly intelligently. Like, I don't think he made a mistake there. He just got unlucky that Crucial whips around for the no-scope there. Brilliant shot from Crucial, though, at the same time. So, wow, man, that's probably the most exciting round we've seen all day. And that was just really crazy how it all played out in the end. Again, you can't, other than the guy at Van missing the shot, no one really made a mistake there. It was just crazy Counter-Strike.
Those are the moments that you love to see, but I'm sure mousesports were grimacing because, as you said, Frozen did everything. Surreal only had 10 bullets left, and I think he expended all of them, and it was a bit of an awkward situation. But now, mousesports, who had plenty of funds, dip back into a buy. They had the option of AWPs. They decide against it. They want to get up close and personal with these AKs, and these grenades afford them the luxury of doing just that. There's a good crossfire being established. Robin sandwich. They also have a player down in shadow, but he's not required because Robin is setting this round alight with Surreal, and then Flamesy dips in for the last one. Mousesports have been battered, bruised, and pushed away. Entirely denied. Carrigan flashed. Surreal will keep onto his life as a result of that, but without control of the bomb, Carrigan can feasibly do nothing.
Wow, we go from the crazy plays of last round to absolute domination this time around, and man, that might be it for mousesports on Mirage, honestly. I mean, Endpoint are on the verge of pushing into a map 3 now. Mousesports, again, they do have enough money to full buy here. Plenty of utility. They'll have the out for Carrigan. But obviously a loss here. I mean, you're forced buying to survive the rest of the game, and you're not going to have anything close to this. So, I mean, it's really do or die right now for mousesports. Just think about it. I mean, how close was it to Frozen winning the 1v1 in this being a completely different scenario? But now Endpoint has sealed the deal, it seems like.
Or maybe that deal has been reopened. Negotiations are taking place, and it's Carrigan that's the man that's trying to impose it. But he's gone down. Surreal now turns his attention towards the B site, where the bulk of the T's are pushing through. Oh, that's great game sense, but his aim slightly off. He knew that it was a possibility that another player would be pushing up middle. But Mighty Max holding the line on the site. Frozen and Chris J, 60 HP between the two of them. Not too much else really working on mousesports, and Frozen sprayed out from Mighty Max. And now Endpoint have 4 map points. After a brutal train performance, they have steadied their nerves. They have bounced back with a vengeance.
Yeah, that was great defense from Endpoint. I mean, even after suffering the, couple of picks there on that catwalk press from mousesports, they were able to have Mighty Max just lock down that B bomb site. Just played it really smart. Good team play, good rotations. And now they have map point against a mousesports that is scraping the bottom of the barrel, and all they've been able to put together is a couple of Galils and upgraded pistols and sparse utility. Obviously, they have the map 3 safety net after dominating on train 16-1. Rops gonna find an entry at least in connector, so he's trying to keep mousesports' hopes of forcing an overtime somewhat alive.
Well, they're very much alive now, Dust. The Carrigan has gone in for a 1 dig, and Rops has got a second. Not just alive, but potentially able to spark into a comeback, spark into an overtime. Mousesports a no. Oh dear, Chris J. He's got the frag alongside Carrigan. And that will be 12 rounds to Mousesports, but I was going to say that Mousesports are no strangers to overtime on Mirage. They've already had 4 of them today, so they'll be happy to see the back of this.
Mirage.
Yep, they sure have.
Incredible baiting there from Rops, by the way, up connector with 2 entries on the A site. Not bitter, of course.
Not even a bit.
Nope. But now all of a sudden, things get interesting again. Like, I honestly thought Endpoint might just shut it down with mousesports having very little to work with that round, but Rops made a big play with the Galil up connector, and all of a sudden the doors cracked back open a bit, especially considering, Vince, if mousesports win this round, Endpoint have to save. And that's when mousesports catch up with the 14. That's when things get real fun.
Crucial and Surreal looking to try and put an end to this comeback, looking to put an end to this map. Mousesports have managed to rummage together a path through connector. Frozen joined by the bomb carrier of Carrigan, and Rops making moves through ramp. Endpoint have stacked the B side pretty damn heavily. Yeah. And it has worked out for them so far, but that may turn very quickly. Flamesy, again on the CT boxes, has played this position quite a few times, joined alongside Crucial. The two of them looking to work in tandem. Molotov put down, a flashbang in as well, but Flamesy still connects one. Throwing the grenade over, taking damage through the tall booth, but it shields him from the bulk of the damage, and now it's down to Carrigan and Rops. They have to 2v5, otherwise Mousesports will concede this map, and we head to Dust 2. Rops in with the first, the Estonian, elated to land that shot, but everything else goes against them. An Endpoint take us to Dust 2 in style. 16-12 after getting battered on train 16-1.
Yeah, I mean, I got to tip my hat over to Endpoint. I mean, they had a strong start, but then Mousesports recovered, and